Back in the early 80s, Deep Purple was just another classic rock band. They released albums in the 60s and 70s. They were the equivalent of like the Doors, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, one of those bands that was just from yesteryear. Their members were doing all other things. Then, in 1984, they released Perfect Strangers. So in this video, we're going to talk about why this was the album that they needed. So a little history, the band went through a major change back in 1974. They lost two major members, who were Ian Gillan and Roger Glover, but they gained two major players in rock who were David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes. But they only lasted for two albums, which were Burn and Stormbringer. Then they lost Ritchie Blackmore, and they released another album called Come Taste the Band. That one had Tommy Bolin on guitars. But the band broke up after that. Tommy Bolin actually passed away. He overdosed a year later. And the band would not reunite until 1984. Now this was a make or break for the band, because this is just my personal theory. But if this album hadn't happened, we may never have heard from this band again. So let me know what you think of that. That's my hypothesis, my theory, whatever you want to call it. Let me know in the comments if you think this was a make or break album. So Perfect Strangers was released on October 29, 1984. It's celebrating 40 years. This is a reunion album of sorts. It's the longest gap between albums. The last Deep Purple album, like I mentioned, was Come Taste the Band from 1975. So that was a 9-year gap. And the last album with the Mark II lineup was Who Do You Think We Are from 1973. So that's 11 years since this particular Deep Purple lineup had played together. So if you don't know, the Mark II lineup is Ian Gillan on vocals, Ritchie Blackmore on guitar, Roger Glover on bass, John Lord on keyboards, and Ian Pace on drums. Now, you may be wondering, what were these people doing all this time? So they were playing in different bands. So for example, Ian Gillan released an album with Black Sabbath. Ritchie Blackmore and Roger Glover released a few albums with the band Rainbow. John Lord was playing with Whitesnake. Ian Pace was playing with Gary Moore's band. But this album, Perfect Strangers, was a commercial success. It reached number 5 on the UK charts and number 17 on the Billboard 200 in the US. This was also their only studio album to be certified platinum in the US, following Machine Head from 1972 and Burn from 1974. They went on tour. The tour was successful, and they had to book so many additional dates for the US Arena tour, and the tickets sold out quickly. And that was like one of the biggest tours of 1985. They outgrossed every major artist with one exception, who was Bruce Springsteen. So the first single was Knockin' at Your Back Door. It was the first track of the album. The song was written by Ritchie Blackmore, Ian Gillan, and Roger Glover. So this track received heavy airplay at the time. It was on heavy rotation. And it was also used by a sports team called the Seattle Supersonics. They were a basketball team, and they used that during home games. And it's kind of strange because I really wonder if that sports team knew what the song really meant. So if you're wondering what it means what you think it means, and you're probably wondering how they got away with it. Well, let's just say it was the 80s. The band also played the song live in their concerts up until 1994. Then after that, they just played it every now and then. The song also appears on various live albums and DVD concerts. The album did pretty well. It peaked number 7 on the top rock tracks, but only made 61 on the Billboard Hot 100. And in the UK, it only reached 68 on the official singles chart. Now there was another single. It was the title track, Perfect Strangers. This appeared as track number 5 on the album. One of the few Deep Purple songs not to have a guitar solo. The lyrics to the song were inspired by the Elric books by Michael Moorcock. And if you didn't know what that was, it's a series of fantasy books. And here's a strange connection. When I heard the name Michael Moorcock, I was thinking I heard this before. And I remember I did a review of a Blue Oyster Cult album. And I remember that he used to write for that band, Blue Oyster Cult. So that's the connection between Deep Purple and Blue Oyster Cult. And this is also a pretty popular song. It was covered by various metal bands. So for example, the black metal band Dimmu Borgir covered it. progressive metal band Dream Theater, and Jordan Land, who is a singer who's popular in Europe. He also covered it. And there's also another sporting connection with the song. It was used as an entrance theme for a wrestler named Shane Douglas, and he was part of a group called the Triple Threat. So I don't really know much about wrestling, but apparently that's true. So let me talk about the music now. The album has 10 tracks, 54 minutes long. I'm going to include the last track, Son of Alaric, which was added to the reissues. It was also the original B-side to Perfect Strangers. So the opening track, Knocking at Your Back Door, it's actually a 7-minute song, and as far as I know, that's the single version length. It's not a shorter version, maybe there is, but the song is a very dark and ominous intro, but once the song takes off, it's classic Deep Purple. It sounds like they did on previous albums, although I felt the song had a little bit more of an 80s pop sound, but the song holds up very well. It's still one of my favorites. The production is very clean, and you can hear all the instruments very well. The next song is Under the Gun. This one shows off John Lord's keyboard sounds. There's like this Middle Eastern sound in this, and something that Ritchie Blackmore was known for. You can hear that in his Rainbow albums. And the hard rocker has lots of energy. Ritchie Blackmore really takes off on the guitar solo. And there's even like this homage to a famous classical music song. But I couldn't really place what it is. So if you know what it is, let me know. But nonetheless, it's a great song, lots of shredding. Then after that is a track called Nobody's Home. Kind of has this weird 80s sounding synth intro, but the song sounded like some classic Deep Purple from the 70s with a signature hard rock sound. Ian Pace really rocks the drums, and he goes full force on the cowbells. Also has an awesome keyboard solo by John Lord, and this band likes to write songs with the word home in it. I'm thinking Pictures of Home, and there's like another one on the new album. Then after this is a song Mean Streak, and it's a straightforward rocker, cool bass guitar sound, keyboards sound very bright. Ian Gillan's still able to let out those screams like he did back in the day. Ritchie Blackmore also shreds on the solo. Then we get to side 2 of the album, and that's where they have the title track. This one has an awesome keyboard intro. It's a classic, one of my favorites, and the song really stands the test of time. I never get bored listening to it. The drumming's great, and I like the middle part of the bridge because I always felt that this section reminded me of Led Zeppelin's Kashmir. I think that's my favorite part of the song. Then they repeat it at the end with a keyboard melody behind it. Just a great song. The next track's another pretty cool deep cut, and maybe like one of my favorite non-singles, and it's Gypsy's Kiss. It has a very retro sound, very fast-paced, similar to a song like Highway Star. It sounds like one of their classic 70s songs, but probably also the heaviest track on the album. And like I said, the best album track, I would say. Ritchie Blackmore really shreds in this. The keyboard solo is great. And they have a pretty cool lyrics. I like the line. They say, John Wayne, the Alamo, Crazy Horse, Geronimo. Some really good lyrics there. Next is Wasted Sunset. It's a slower track, but the guitar playing is very melodic. The keyboards complement the sound well. Ritchie Blackmore plays the lead guitar, and he doesn't really play super fast. It's more about like feeling. It's a ballad, but it doesn't sound like the typical power ballads of the 80s. It's just a song with a lot of emotion. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Carlos Santana, like that type of song. But then after this is a song called Hungry Days. Sounds a lot like a Ritchie Blackmore type of song. It sounded more like something from Rainbow with that Middle Eastern sound, but Ian Gillan makes it sound like Deep Purple. There's even a nod to Smoke on the Water in the lyrics. They say, we all came down to Montreux, but that's another song. So there's a little nod to Machine Head there. And kind of a strange sounding breakdown, but works in the context of the song. And after this is a song called Not Responsible, more of a classic rock sounding song, more of a mid-paced rocker. I would say one of the tracks that doesn't really stand out much, but not a bad song. Nonetheless, also the official album closer. The next song I talk about is going to be the bonus track, but it's also the best part of the song, whereas the ending where they have this groovy guitar solo and Ian Gillan lets out some of those screams that he's known for. And the bonus track is Son of Alaric. It's an instrumental. It's like 10 minutes long. Starts off very mellow. Kind of sounds like an extended jam session. Song has a lot of guitar, a lot of keyboard harmonies. Song takes on more of this guitar rock sound after about 3 minutes. And afterwards, they have these keyboard solos. The type of song you could just chill out to. Not very complex. It's a good song to sit back and relax with. And that's all. Check out my review of their next album, which is House of the Blue Light. I'm going to stick it over there. I don't know where. It's going to be somewhere. But please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I have some merch. I have memberships. Just open the video description and you can see all ways you can support the channel. So that is all. I will see you in the next one.